I funded our entire Christmas. Gifts, food, everything. But my mom handed me a special gift, a blacklist titled, Rules to Stay Welcome. I stayed quiet. 3 months later, I gave her my own gift, a locked savings account notice, served up on New Year's. I'd poured my heart into Christmas this year. $1, $200 on gifts, a honey-glazed ham from the caterer, and strings of lights twinkling across my living room. I'm Sarah, the oldest of 3, and I've always been the one to keep our family's holidays alive. Last year, when Dad got laid off, I covered the whole celebration. $800 out of pocket, without a peep. This time, I was determined to make it perfect. I just hung the last ornament, a glass star I'd found at a thrift store. When my sister Lauren swept in, dropping her coat on the couch, I'd spent an hour vacuuming. "Looks nice," she muttered, eyes glued to her phone. I forced a smile, brushing glitter off my hands. Then Mom arrived, her cheeks rosy from the cold, and pressed a red envelope into my palm. A little gold bow stuck on top. "A little something for you, sweetie," she said, her voice syrupy. I thought it might be a thank you note. God knows I'd earned one after years of playing Santa. My fingers tore the paper, and I pulled out a folded sheet, typed and crisp. Sarah's holiday blacklist. Rules to stay welcome. My breath caught. No complaining about costs. No overbearing hosting, no guilt trips about past favors. Like the time I paid off Mom's credit card or Lauren's rent. I stared at the words, then at Mom. Her grin didn't falter. "We thought it'd help," she said, like she'd handed me a recipe card. Lauren smirked from the couch. "You're always so intense, Sarah." My chest tightened. I'd spent weeks planning, shopping, decorating. My savings drained to give them a holiday they'd never bother to fund themselves. And this was my reward? A list of rules, wrapped up like a gift, telling me how to behave in my own damn house. I stood there, the envelope crumpling in my fist, their casual chatter fading into a dull roar. They'd turned my Christmas into a critique, and I was the fool who'd paid for it. The Christmas lights flickered as I stood in my living room, the blacklist trembling in my hands. I couldn't just let it sit there, a silent insult under the tree. I unfolded it fully and read aloud, my voice cracking like thin ice. No unsolicited advice about cooking. Let Lauren handle the sides if she wants. No comments on store-bought desserts being lazy. No bringing up who paid for what. Each rule felt like a jab, tailored to mock every effort I'd made. Mom perched on the armchair, nodding like a teacher approving a lesson plan. "It's for harmony, Sarah," she said, her tone so calm it made my skin crawl. Lauren snorted, sprawled across the couch. "Yeah, you're always so extra." Dad just stared at his coffee mug, avoiding my eyes. I felt like I'd been stripped bare. A servant they decided to reprimand instead of thank. The ham I'd ordered, the gifts I'd wrapped. All of it turned to ash in that moment. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked up, humiliation burning hotter than anger. Then the memories crashed in, sharp and uninvited. 2 years ago, Lauren called me sobbing. Her car was about to be repossessed. I sent her $5,000, no questions asked, even though I was eating ramen to make rent. She bought a new phone the next week. Never mentioned the loan again. Then there was Mom cornering me after Dad's surgery last spring. "We're drowning in bills," she'd whispered. I wired $2,000 that night, skipping my own car payment to cover it. Her thank you? A breezy, "You're so lucky to have no kids, Sarah. Makes it easier to help." I'd bitten my tongue so hard it bled, convincing myself that's what family does. But standing there, blacklist in hand, I saw it differently. They didn't see me as family. They saw a bank account with legs, one they could kick when it dared to speak. The worst part wasn't even the list itself. It was a memory I'd buried, one that clawed its way up as I stared at Mom's smug face. Last summer, I'd been at their house, helping sort mail after Dad's unemployment stretched their budget thin. I'd grabbed my phone to check the time and saw a text preview. "Mom to Lauren, sent an hour earlier. Sarah's reliable, but so controlling. Good for cash, though." I'd frozen, pretending I hadn't seen it, but the words seared into me. I'd gone home that night and cried into my pillow, the kind of ugly sobs that leave you hollow. Yet I kept sending money. $500 for their electric bill, $300 for Lauren's emergency vet visit. I told myself it was fine, that they didn't mean it, that love was messy. But now, with this list pinned under that stupid bow, it wasn't messy love. It was a calculated gut punch. They'd sat around a table, typed this up, agreed I needed fixing, all while I was out buying their damn Christmas stockings. I dropped the paper onto the coffee table, the thud louder than it should have been in the quiet room. "Harmony," I said, my voice low, dangerous. Mom tilted her head, like I was a kid throwing a tantrum. "We just want everyone to enjoy the holidays," she said. Lauren chimed in. "You make it all about you, Sarah, like, chill." I looked at Dad, hoping for something, anything. He sipped his coffee, eyes on the floor. My chest ached, not just from the betrayal, but from how familiar it felt. I'd spent years bending over backwards, $15,000 in favors over half a decade, by my rough count, because I thought it proved I belonged. But this was them saying I didn't belong unless I followed their script. I decorated the house, filled it with warmth, and they'd turned it into a courtroom, me the defendant. I stepped back, hands shaking. "I need air," I muttered, grabbing my coat. Mom called after me, "Don't be dramatic. It's just feedback." Feedback. Like I was a malfunctioning appliance they'd decided to troubleshoot. I didn't answer, just walked out into the cold, the snow crunching under my boots. The streetlights blurred through tears I refused to let fall. I'd given them everything, money, time, pieces of myself, and they'd handed me a rulebook to shrink me down. But as I stood there, breath fogging in the night, something shifted. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. They thought they could control me, shame me after all I'd done. They had no idea what I was capable of. I'd been their safety net too long, and that blacklist wasn't just a gift, it was their first mistake. Christmas dinner started with the clatter of plates and the hum of small talk, but I barely heard it over the roar in my head. I'd come back inside after that freezing walk, the blacklist still a live wire in my mind. The table was set, my table in my house, laden with food I'd paid for. The ham, mashed potatoes, even the wine Dad was pouring like he owned the place. I moved on autopilot, serving slices while Lauren scrolled Instagram and Mom adjusted her napkin. No one offered to help, not even when I nearly dropped the gravy boat. I bit my lip, the rules echoing. No overbearing hosting. Fine. I sat down, plate empty, and watched them dig in. Then Uncle Mike arrived, late as usual, and Lauren perked up. "Hey, Uncle M, check this out," she said, snagging the blacklist from the sideboard where I'd left it. She read it aloud, voice dripping with glee. "No guilt trips about past favors. Sarah's gotta let that go." Mike chuckled. "Sounds about right." My fork froze midair. They were laughing at me in my own dining room, over a meal I'd bankrolled. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I paid for this," I said louder than I meant to. The room stilled. Mom sighed. "There's that attitude again, Sarah." Lauren rolled her eyes. "Always the martyr." Dad just chewed, like I hadn't spoken. Rage surged, hot and jagged. I tallied it once. $15,000 over 5 years, from car repairs to medical copays. Also they could sit here and mock me. "You're eating my money," I snapped. "Every bite." Mom's smile tightened. "We appreciate it, but you don't have to make it a thing." A thing? I drained my savings for their comfort, and it was a thing? I pushed my chair back, the scrape loud against the hardwood. "Enjoy your harmony," I said, and stormed to the kitchen, hands trembling as I gripped the counter. They didn't follow, just kept eating. That's when I decided. I'd been their doormat too long, and that blacklist was their declaration of war. I slipped into the living room, the tree lights casting shadows on the gifts I'd wrapped. Under the branches, I tucked an envelope. Plain, no bow, no fanfare. Inside was a notice I'd drafted that morning. Intent to reclaim my savings account, the one I'd let Mom co-manage after her bankruptcy 5 years ago. She'd begged me to bail her out. $8,000 $000 to clear her debts, and I'd handed over access, thinking she'd pay me back. She never did. Instead, she dipped into it whenever she pleased, assuming I wouldn't notice. But I had records, every withdrawal, every excuse. The account was still legally mine. She'd signed it over in a panic, too desperate to read the terms. This notice was step 1. Freeze it, demand repayment, or close it entirely. I slid it beneath a box of Lauren's new boots. Ironic, since I'd paid for those too, and went back to the table, face blank. Dinner dragged on, their chatter a dull buzz. I didn't eat, just watched. When they finally left, Mom hugged me, all sugar. Thanks for hosting, sweetie. Lauren smirked. See you at New Year's. I nodded, saying nothing about the envelope they'd find later. But the betrayal didn't end there. That night, my phone lit up with a notification. Lauren's Instagram story. A photo of the blacklist, captioned, "Some people ruin Christmas with drama. #FamilyFun. She tagged me, my name glowing in blue for her 300 followers to see. My jaw clenched as likes rolled in. Cousins, friends, even a coworker I barely knew. She turned my hurt into her punchline. A public flogging after I'd given her everything. I stared at the screen, the humiliation sinking deep, but it only fueled me. They thought they could shame me into silence? They'd misjudged me. I pulled up the banking app, double-checking the notice I'd mailed earlier that day, certified, tracked, undeniable. Mom would get it tomorrow, and the account would lock by week's end unless she coughed up what she owed. I pictured her face, that fake sweetness melting into panic, and a grim satisfaction settled in. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect they'd never given me. Lauren's post was the last straw, proof they'd never see me as more than a wallet to raid and a target to mock. I leaned back, the house quiet now, and let the anger harden into resolve. They'd opened the door with that list. I was about to kick it down. The envelope under the tree was just the beginning. They had no idea what was coming. The days after Christmas felt like a slow burn, the silence from Mom a ticking bomb. Then, on the 27th, my phone rang, her number. I let it buzz, steeling myself. When I finally listened to the voicemail, her voice was all honey. "Sarah? Sweetie, can you fund New Year's? We're counting on you." I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. After the blacklist, the dinner, Lauren's post, they still thought I'd say yes? I texted back one word. No, the group chat exploded. Lauren, "Wow, selfish much? Dad, think about your mother." I muted it, done with their guilt trips. But the real blow landed the next morning. I checked my credit card statement online, a habit after years of covering their messes, and saw it. $800 in charges I hadn't made. Boutique clothes, a spa day, dated Christmas Eve. My stomach twisted. I'd left my purse by the coat rack during dinner. Lauren must have swiped the card while I was serving. She texted me later, casual as hell. "You owe us anyway for all the crap you pull." Theft. She'd stolen from me in my own house and had the gall to justify it. I was still reeling when Mom invited me to a family brunch 2 days later, code for another ambush. I went, not to reconcile, but to see how far they'd push. The diner was packed, cousins and aunts crammed around a long table. Mom greeted me with a hug, then slid a laminated sheet across the formica. Sarah's holiday blacklist, revised. She'd upgraded it. Bolder font. New rules. No sulking over money. No playing victim. She'd handed copies to everyone. Aunt Jen flipped through hers, smirking. "You're too sensitive, Sarah," Mom said, loud enough for the table to hear. "We're just helping you fit in." Lauren grinned. "Yeah. Stop being so dramatic." My face burned as forks clinked and eyes darted my way. They'd turned my shame into a party favor, a spectacle for relatives I barely saw. I stood, voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Fit in? After I've kept you afloat." Mom's eyes welled up, crocodile tears. "You're tearing us apart," she wailed. I left, their whispers trailing me out the door. Back home, I pulled the trigger. I'd mailed the savings account closure notice after Christmas. Mom got it by now, judging by her call, but I logged into the bank portal and finalized it. 8 grand of my money, siphoned over years, locked away from her grasp. She'd signed it over during that bankruptcy panic, too flustered to notice I'd kept full ownership. I'd waited for repayment that never came. Now I was done waiting. The confirmation email pinged. Account frozen. Pending closure unless she paid up. I exhaled, a weight lifting. But the victory felt hollow with Lauren's theft and that brunch still stinging. They weren't just ungrateful. They were predators, and I'd been their prey too long. I dug through my purse, found the credit card, and called to report it stolen. The rep asked for details. I gave them voice flat, filing a fraud claim against my own sister. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about drawing a line they'd never respected. That night, my phone buzzed with a photo from Lauren. My credit card, snapped before she'd used it, captioned, "Thanks for the spa day, sis." She'd sent it to the family chat, a taunt, proof she didn't care. I saved the screenshot, evidence for the bank, maybe the cops if it came to that. My hands shook, not from fear, but from a fury I couldn't name. They'd humiliated me at Christmas, mocked me online, stolen from me, and now paraded it like a trophy. I thought of the Blacklist's rules. No sulking, no victimhood, and laughed. A dark, jagged sound. They didn't want harmony. They wanted control, and I'd handed it over for years, check by check, favor by favor. But not anymore. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The brunch had been a stage, the theft a power play, both designed to break me. Instead, they'd forged something harder. I'd spent $10,000 on them over the years, car loans, bills, holidays, money I'd never see again. But that savings account, that was mine, and closing it was just the start. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd cave like always. I pulled up the notice confirmation, forwarded it to my email, and started a new document. Every expense, every slight, every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. They'd see soon enough. Sarah wasn't their ATM anymore. She was their reckoning. New Year's Eve arrived, and I wasn't invited officially. But Mom's text came anyway. Family party at our place. 7 p.m. Hope you'll join. No apology, just that fake warmth I'd come to loathe. I went not for peace but to end this. I'd spent the week after the brunch gathering ammo, bank statements, the fraud claim against Lauren, that damning spa day photo. The savings account was already locked. Mom's panicked voicemails confirmed she'd seen the notice. I walked into their house, the air thick with pine and tension, an envelope in my coat pocket. Lauren greeted me at the door, smirking. "Look who's back for more." I brushed past her. Mom called from the kitchen, "Sarah, grab a plate." I didn't. Instead, I dropped the envelope on the dining table, the thud cutting through their chatter. "What's this?" Dad asked, frowning. "Open it," I said, arms crossed. Mom emerged, wiping her hands, and slit the envelope. Her face paled as she read. Final notice of account closure. $10,000 in unrepaid withdrawals listed. Hers and Lauren's. "You're $10,000 in the red," I said, voice cold. "That's mine, not yours." Lauren lunged across the table. "You're a monster, after everything we've done." I laughed, dry and sharp. "Like stealing my credit card? $800, Lauren. Ring a bell." I tossed the printed statement onto the table, charges circled in red. Dad muttered, "Ungrateful." But his eyes flicked to the paper. Mom clutched the notice. "We're family, Sarah. You don't do this." I stepped closer. "Family doesn't steal, blacklist me, then beg for more. I'm done." The room went quiet, their guests, cousins, neighbors, shifting awkwardly. Then Lauren smirked. "You're just mad we called you out." That's when I dropped the second bomb. "Speaking of calling out," I said, pulling another sheet from my pocket. "You sold my laptop, didn't you?" Her smirk faltered. I'd lent it to her last year when hers crashed. A cousin tipped me off she'd pawned it for $300, bragging about the easy cash. I'd confirmed it with the shop's receipt, dated a month ago. "That's theft number 2, I said, sliding the receipt next to the credit card statement. Mom gasped. "Lauren, is that true?" Lauren stammered. "It was old anyway. I shook my head. It was mine. Like the money you've both been bleeding me dry for. Dad stood. This is ridiculous. You're exaggerating. I met his glare. 10 grand over 5 years, Dad. Car loans, bills, holidays, I've got the records. You signed the account over. It's mine to take back. Mom sobbed. We raised you. I cut her off. And I paid you for it. Literally. The air crackled. Lauren shouted, You're ruining everything. And swiped the papers off the table, tearing the notice in half. I didn't flinch. That's a copy, I said. Banks got the original. Dad pointed at the door. Get out. I nodded. Gladly. But before I left, I turned to Mom. You've got 30 days to pay up or it's gone. Account, support, all of it. She wailed. You're heartless. I looked at Lauren, then her. You wrote the rules. I'm just following them. No more guilt trips. I walked out, their yells fading behind me. The cold bit my face, but I felt lighter than I had in years. 2 days later, a lawyer's letter arrived. Mom's desperate counterpunch. They claimed I'd coerced the account transfer, demanded I reverse it and resume support. I called my own lawyer, sent the records, text statements, that laptop receipt. They've got nothing, she said. It's yours. I hung up, staring at the ceiling. Lauren's thefts, Mom's laminated humiliation. They'd pushed too far, and I'd pushed back harder. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my nephew, Jake, Lauren's kid. Aunt Sarah, I'm sorry. Mom's a mess. But you didn't deserve this. I typed back, Thanks, kid. You're okay. His reply, a thumbs up, was a small crack of light in the rubble. I sat there, the house silent, and realized it was over. They'd lost their grip and I'd found mine. The fallout wasn't pretty, but it was mine to shape now. 3 months have passed since I walked out of Mom's New Year's party. The torn notice scattered on her floor. I'm in a new apartment now, small, clean, mine. No buzzing group chats, no late-night pleas for cash. Mom and Lauren moved in with Aunt Jen last week. The savings accounts closed. My lawyer shut down their flimsy claim. I didn't watch them leave. Just got an email from the bank. Funds secured. I hosted my own Christmas in March, a do-over. 1 plate, a store-bought pie I burned anyway, and a laugh that echoed off bare walls. No rules, no blacklist. Then a card slipped through my mail slot, no return address. Inside, a photo. Me at 10, grinning in a Santa hat, the family blurred around me. On the back, Jake's scrawl, You were enough, Aunt Sarah. I sat on the couch, tears spilling. Not for them, but for the girl I'd been, finally free. I don't regret it. I'd spent decades proving my worth with checks and silence, only to be their punching bag. Lauren's thefts, Mom's public shaming, they woke me up. I sleep now, phone on silent. No guilt gnawing at me. Peace isn't cold here. It's warm earned. Family isn't a debt you pay with your soul. It's a bond built on respect, not receipts. I learned that giving until you're hollow doesn't buy love. It breeds users who'll spit in your face. My mistake was thinking I owed them money, time, dignity for being born first. The blacklist wasn't my shame. It was their mirror, reflecting greed I'd ignored too long. Walking away showed me my value isn't in what I provide, but what I protect. Myself. If they only see you as a resource, they don't deserve your presence. I gave them chances, $10,000 worth, and they gave me rules. I gave them truth, and they couldn't handle it. The lesson? Don't let anyone define your worth by what you can give. Let them face their own emptiness. You're not their fix. I'm not sorry I stopped being theirs. Thanks for sticking with Sarah's story. Everyone, it's been a wild ride from betrayal to triumph. If this hit home, or if you've got your own tale of breaking free, drop a comment below. Subscribe for more stories that unpack the messy, real stuff. See you next time.